My channel, Made in Mother Russia. I hope the sound is okay. Yeah, today I want to chat to you guys about a topic that has been on my mind, and I think this is the right time to talk to you guys about it. And I think this is the right time to talk to you guys about it. The main topic of today is I want to give you guys my opinion. So my opinions about why do Russian people, and when I'm saying Russian, I mean Russians, real Russian, the Russian people, why do they underestimate themselves so much? You know, because Russians have very great potential, you know, but I cannot say really what percentage, but a big percentage of Russian people, I think, underestimate themselves. They actually don't see their real true value and true potential, or they don't see their true value, hence they don't reach their true potential. I can give you examples why I think so. For example, since the start of this special military operation, I think only now a lot of Russians started to realize their true potential. By that I mean that most of them realize that, or maybe they already knew this, but realize that there is more to a people than the physical aspects, you know, physical things like brand names of clothes, junk food like McDonald's, KFC, Coca-Cola, or let me say artificial or made-up cultures such as Hollywood movies, you know, all the spectacular, dramatic, fictitious fakeness, you know. So basically, I think most Russians came out of this bubble, which is a very good thing. This is one of the positive outcomes of the special military operation. A lot of Russians woke up to the truth. So let me find a place to cross. So basically, the reason why I think that most Russians also do not value themselves is, you know, every time I watch, for example, all the movies I watched from the Soviet era movies, most of them contained, you know, an exquisite dialogue. You know, it was not about the dramatic effect of some type of spectacular explosion, or I mean, whereby you can see that those type of Hollywood movies whereby they really invest a lot of money for it to sell, you know. Example like Marvel's, what do you call it? Marvel's, okay, let me find quickly a train. I'll continue this later. I need to get to the metro. Huh? The one and only, my favorite statue here in Moscow of Pushkin, Alexander Pushkin, the most famous poet, the Russian poet. Hope the sound is great. So yeah, I want to continue with my analysis of why I think the special military operation changed the mentality of most of the Russians for the better, forever. So basically, the main topic is, why do most Russians underestimate themselves? And by underestimating themselves, they miss the opportunity to really fulfill their full potential, to see their full potential. Basically, let me start off by saying Russia is one of the oldest countries. And oldest, I mean, it has, and when I'm talking about Russians, I'm talking about Russians. Part of Asia, part of Europe, part of the Middle East a little bit. So in general, Russians have always been surrounded by different cultures. And throughout the time, throughout the ages, and this is all my opinion, guys, throughout these periods, Russians had to become tough. they had to adapt and become, in order to survive. Because they were fighting with the Mongols, they were fighting with other various peoples, different type of people. So I consider Russians as they have become wolves because in order to survive amongst wolves, you yourself have to be a wolf. And because of this type of because of this adaptation, the Russians became wolves and they became tough in order to survive amongst all these other people. And hence today, Russians still have their language, they still have their religion, they still have their culture, and they still have their land. I mean that they did not perish like many other races or many other people in history. So I want to say that in general, Russians are not 100% Europeans. They are more tougher than Europeans. They are more resilient because they have tasted suffering. They know what is it to suffer. So they have increased that level of endurance, level of resilience. And I mean, Russians they are very, they have a full potential. Example, during the years of enlightenment in Europe, whereby the golden years, whereby information was being shared in Europe, the years of Galileo, the years of Newton, and so forth and so on. This Europe itself was developing at a faster pace because all these countries, they were sharing information, sharing knowledge. There was a good competition, for new inventions, discoveries in science and education. So by that fact alone, Europe developed at a very fast pace. But it was all because these countries among these people in Europe were coordinating amongst themselves or between themselves. But on the other hand, Russia to the far east, the Russians, they have survived even scientifically. They have survived even scientifically because during the time of the years of enlightenment in Europe, the Russians, they themselves were developing their own sciences, Dmitry Mendeleev and so forth and so on. Hence, Russians today were able to do everything themselves. So in general, what I want to say is that Russians developed their own sciences. Russians developed their own educational systems. Russians developed their own military sciences, developed their own architecture. They really did not ask for anybody's help. So Russia and Russians they're one of the people that can live in isolation. So Russians have been in isolation. So basically, Russians have survived in isolation, but they have managed to do it all. And all, I mean, they have done it all by themselves. And this is the jealousy of the Western countries today. But the problem is, as a foreigner, I understand this and I see it. I understand that Russians in general, they have a full potential, And the most positive, the advantage that they have is that they have a foundation. And their foundation is not based on some type of artificial or some type of man-made history or man-made culture. No, they have a real foundation, a cultural foundation. They have a true historical, cultural foundation, traditional foundation, You can trace all these Russians based on their names, their surnames. You can trace them back in history, And this is a positive thing. This is their strength. And most Russians that have low esteem or don't value their full potential, it seems like they don't know this fact, this simple fact, that their strength is from their foundation, their feet are standing in solid concrete foundation. So once a people has a foundation, a solid foundation, it's very difficult to win against these people in any type of battle. It can be militarily, culturally, educationally. I mean, they can withstand anything, you know. So basically, and this is, I can prove this by just saying that this is why until today, Russians prefer to speak Russian, most Russians, and those are the Russians that do not have low esteem. And that's another point I want to say. Russians, you know, most of these Russians that I'm talking about, they want to integrate English words within the Russian language. And for me, that is such a pity, because they can't seem to understand that Russian as a language, it's more advanced, many times more advanced than English. Hence, when I see a person speaking Russian, I'm so amazed that by the fact that that person does not understand or grasp the fact that he's really speaking or she's speaking a complicated language, you know? And that alone is something to be proud of. So a lot of these low esteemed having Russians, and it's not, I don't want to say it's their fault. Of course, it's not their fault. It's their brainwashing, you know? Most of them are brainwashed to believe that the USA is the pinnacle of all achievements. Most of them want to live and go live abroad, not understanding that what they have here is many times better than what is there, than what they are being sold, the fakery that they are being sold. And as a matter of fact, I also feel very sorry for the young ones, because most of them are being manipulated by all this social media. Excuse me, guys. I hope the wind is not so harsh. Most of them are being manipulated and brainwashed by all this social media. And it's really, I do understand that it's really difficult for the government to fight this social media and internet era. But once a young person, like from here, from Russia, opens an account on Instagram, their life has been negatively changed forever. And you know, it's a shame.